This broadcast of Medgar Evers College Radio is paid for by Medgar Evers College. Good evening and welcome to Writers on Writing. I am your host, Dr. Brenda Greene, and we come to you each Sunday and give you, our listening audience, to have an opportunity to hear writers talk about their work, their craft, and their lives. We are presented by the Center for Black Literature, and we are coming to you through Medgar Evers College over WNYE 91.5 FM. And I am very pleased to have in virtual space with me today, Carl Clay. Welcome, Carl.
Thank you. And it is a pleasure to be on your show, Dr. Greene. Your reputation precedes you. It's a pleasure and honor.
So I'm going to share with our audience the phenomenal work you're doing, and you talk about reputations preceding you. Yours has preceded you, and you've done so much work for the community and over the years. So as the founder and CEO of Black Spectrum Theater, Carl Clay has produced more than 450 plays and written and directed 20 films aimed at African American youth. Clay has produced more than 40 jazz concerts, and he has written more than 20 plays. He has been awarded 5 Odelco Awards as producer for the year for the productions Two Trains Running, that's August Wilson, right? Kingfish, and Deadwood Dick, Legend of the West. Carl Clay is also a lyricist, and he has written songs for well-known jazz and rap artists, and has received an ASCAP award for his songs in the motion picture Kofi. He also received a National Library Association award for his films Baby Making Babies, important topic, and an International Film and TV Festival Bronze Medal Award for The Follower and Clear Vision. Clay's films, Urban Encounters and Justice is Done, were given National Black Programming Consortium Award for Outstanding Youth Programming. And we are very pleased that the Center for Black Literature has just at its 15th National Black Writers Conference presented Carl Clay with the Douglas Turner Award in recognition of his work as the founder and CEO of Black Spectrum Theater. So we'd like to start off by having you talk about how you got into playwriting and even screenwriting, and then becoming a lyricist. Let's talk about you personally. How did you get into that?
Okay, well, I guess you can say that my career started in a weird kind of way from high school. I haven't written a play, and it was called Captain Colored, and it was Captain Colored.
Okay. Captain Colored.
Yeah. And so, I wrote it in the class, I read it in class, was the first thing I written, and the class went wild over it, and they said, wow, we have to put this play on. And what happened is that the teacher said, well, I don't know if we can do this play because there's a word in this play that I don't agree with. And so we weren't able to.
Wonder what that was.
Well, the word was brown shirts, and I wasn't familiar with what brown shirts were, but she made reference to the fact brown shirts was used in Nazi Germany, and I felt like, well, why would you stop a whole play for one word, So at the same time that I wrote my first play, I also began to understand censorship, okay, and how things get censored. So that was my first foray into it. Subsequently, one of my friends, good friends that I grew up with, was put into a program over the summer that it was up in Vermont, and they put on this play, and he knew that I was interested in writing things and stuff. And so they brought the play down from Vermont to the Clark Center for the Performing Arts, which was on 8th Avenue and 50th Street, Manhattan, which is now gone. But at that Y, where a lot of Black artists would come, they put on this play, and he said, oh, come on down and see it, and I was just blown away by it. I was totally blown away. I just kept reading and reading more about our history. And, one of the early books that I think really turned on some light switches was a piece about, the whole, Before the Mayflower, Lerone Bennett. And, it was just reading all of this history that really, it really it really pissed me off, because I'm starting to read this stuff and I'm like, well, wait a minute, how come I didn't know this? How come I didn't know that? So that turned into more of the energy of the writing and desire to express that. And then things that were going on in the 60s and watching stuff on television. And
you were supported so early in your career as a writer. And I imagine that, as you said, this was the time of the Black Power movement, Black arts movement, the Black Panthers, a lot of social upheaval. And you were reading, you read Lerone Bennett as a teenager.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Did you grow to, and you were in school in New York City?
Yeah, I went to Newtown High School, and the Lerone Bennett book became literally like a manual for me for he just touched on so many things. To me, it was a brilliant book. And, this is the thing about education. Once that light bulb gets turned on, you start saying, like, well, what do you do with this? And you want to express it. You want to talk about it. And so, so those were some of the beginnings. And I was in church there in Queens, and, I asked the pastor of the church, because I literally got tired of going to Manhattan. So I was asking him, could we start something there at the church? And we did. And so one of the first plays that was there was a play in which we investigated the word niggers. And we took it all the way back to its origin in the 16th century and brought it all the way up to date. So it was a really sophisticated piece. And if writing and so forth was important to me then, I mean, it really turned me on. The idea of working with actors and, expressing what was inside of you. That year, after that, we got a lot of attention from that. And that next year I came back, and we put together a piece called Black Love. And that really became quite a different experience because, I had seen Leroy Jones's piece in Mama Baraka and, Ed Bullen's. I respected their work, but there seemed to be so much anger in it. And I was feeling something else about our people early on, which was, why are we concerned about other people? There's love within us. There's love within ourselves. And so that really became the theme of Black Love, the answers in ourselves. And that became one of the bylines for the play, the answers in ourselves. And
were you writing these plays, or you were just producing and directing them?
I was, it became one of the that I've always respected and loved. And that's what I call the collaborative approach. And, you bring an idea and a plot line to a group of actors, and you work it through from improvisation, and then you horn that like a sculpturist until you can get that scene down to a point where you can say, that's theater, that works, And so that became the process for Black Love. And we toured that play all over the Eastern Seaboard, in the colleges. And I mean, we just went everywhere with that play, and it just continued to get better and better and better. And then after a while, we decided that, and when I say we had formed a group, after our first play, we did Black Love. It was in September of 1970, and we were meeting in one of the members' basements. And I said, well, look, we can't just throw this piece away. I mean, how many of you want to come together and continue doing this? And everybody kind of raised their hands and said, I do. And that became literally the beginning of Black Spectrum Theater.
So you
Um,
had people like Ed Bullens and Mary Baraka, and you probably know Richard Wesley,
of course.
people who were influencing you then, but you decided to take that tension between the politics and Marxism and cultural nationalism
Mhm.
and Black Power, and to do another dimension
Right.
of that, to give another experience of to zero in on another experience of the experience of Black people in
Yes.
America. But
That's
I'd like you to talk a little bit more about what other writers during that period influenced you. Is there any person who really influenced you, or were you really just writing? Was more like an encounter with the other writers who were writing during
um,
that period?
that's a very good question. Tony McCabe, when it was time to kind of put Black love to rest, uh, I would go to all kinds of lectures and book readings, and uh, you know, and one of the things that we picked up was uh, Tony McCabe had written a book, and it was, she dealt with the whole idea of African American men, and the idea that there may come a point that there would have to be a time where one would have to share the men because of the lack of Black males, because being caught into the prison system and so forth. And that always, it intrigued me, and it's part of the the energy to create a piece called 2000 Black. And 2000 Black was about where do African Americans end up in the year 2000. Uh, so Tony McCabe, you know, of course, Imamu Baraka, back to his work, back to Richard's work, um, also, Invisible Man. I mean, it just ran the gamut of a whole plethora of Black writers um, that I looked at their work. James Baldwin also was a big influence in terms of understanding, of course, Malcolm X and his autobiography, and um, uh, uh, the list goes on and on.
So then you end up moving into screenwriting and into music. Music is very much a part of what you do.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there came a time when we had to play Black Love that one of the members said, they were a member of the Voices of East Harlem, Wayne Garfield. And he says, well, I know an artist, a musical artist who might consider creating a cast album for the play Black Love. And that was my introduction to meeting Roy Ayers. And
Oh, I
so,
love Roy Ayers. Oh.
yeah, so as it turned out, again, we presented the play and the whole thing, and he actually never really did a cast album, but it introduced him to our work. And by chance, I became a lyricist literally by accident, because he had gotten he had just finished doing an album called Red, Black, and Green, and he got a chance to do the soundtrack for the movie Coffee with Pam Grier. And, she
Like
was the,
exploitation,
yeah,
right?
well, that's right. So, he was tasked with doing the soundtrack. And then he said, wow, well, you guys do a lot of theater work and this and that, maybe you can help me with, putting this piece together. So, I mean, we literally woke up and went to sleep on his floor, in down in the village for close to 2 weeks, working on this soundtrack. And I ended up doing lyrics for several of the tunes. And my writing partner, who became my writing partner, Wayne Garfield, we went on to write other tunes for Roy Ayers, and he ultimately then picked up a song that we did called 2000 Black, as well as some other tunes of Sensitize and Virgo Red. So I ended up doing lyrics on Roy's album for about 4 albums. And that led me into working with Norman Connors and, and then that list went on. And so that's how I got into the work of doing lyrics. And also the whole question of working with several films. There was a film being done for ABC with Cliff Frazier, who was one of my mentors, who started the workshop that was actually started by Ossie Davis. And so they were doing a film, and they came to myself and and Wayne and asked, could we do some work for that? And that became Turkey Treasure. And then I ended up working on a movie with who I ended up working with was Melvin Van Peebles, and they needed music and lyrics for a movie that was called Greased Lightning, about the first Black race car driver. They subsequently didn't use all of that music, but that that continued our foray into the music business and writing lyrics and being asked by other people to write lyrics and music. There was probably a song that I guess you could call it a heartbreak of mine. There was a piece that I wrote called I Am Your Mind, which Roy subsequently used for the next several years in his tours that he would do around the country and overseas. And I remember the president of the record company came down, we were getting ready to release it. And he said, "Oh, I don't want that on any of my artists' album." And nobody ever understood why the president of Polydor Records would come down into a studio of an artist and pick one particular piece and say that they didn't want it. Everybody was like stunned. To this day, we don't even understand what it was.
What was that piece again?
It was called I Am Your Mind. I Am Your Mind.
I Am Your Mind.
Yeah, and so it was a very positive, uplifting piece about the power of the mind and how important it is in terms of positivity and being able to reach your goals and dreams and not being deterred.
You can really read a lot into that when you place that against the fact that there may have been Black exploitation movies going on, and then you had the Black Power. So you place that alongside a positive song. What is that saying about the impact of the media and what they want to promote, which is what we saw in the conference, the National Black Writers Conference on Playwrights and Screenwriters. Still, those challenges were there.
Yes.
And they continue.
Absolutely. And it's as though the more positive it gets, the more negative it gets on the flip side of people preventing some, important things being said.
But you did that, your founding of the Black Spectrum Theater is a way that you've addressed that. Can you talk about that, how you founded that, the motivation, and how you've kept it alive for 50 years? You're celebrating 50 years.
Yeah. I always tell people that, no, I never started out thinking it would be around for 50 years. However, I think one of the things that happened is that as I developed, and every time I had a new vision of something that I thought was important, I realized, why try to reinvent the wheel somewhere else? Why not incorporate it into the context of what we're doing? So we were doing theater. And so my love of film was developed, having worked with, at an early age, with cameras and so forth. And so one of my first films, Babies, was really a project that I did at Brooklyn College Graduate School. And they gave me a 16 millimeter Bolex camera and some film footage. And they said, come up with a concept. And we had already had the theater there on Linden Boulevard. And I remember these young ladies walking by, teenagers, and I only had a little area to look out my window. But for some reason, there was this period where everybody who walked by, it seemed like they were pregnant. And so, I just said, there's something to this. And so I went home and wrote something, and a week later, I had that Bolex out and we were filming, and I called it Babies Making Babies. When we actually showed that film, the line was around the corner of people who it resonated with them. And so we took that on tour also. So here we had the theater working. One of our first productions that really beyond the 2000 Black that we opened on Linden Boulevard was a piece called Deadwood Dick, Legend of the West, or They Went That Way, about Black cowboys. Everybody from, Deadwood Dick and, Cherokee Bill and all of these famous Black cowboys, Isom Dart. And it was a musical comedy. It had a very deep message about African Americans working together and, the West and these images that had been removed from history. So we had the film going, we had the plays going, and then we just continued to try to make films and do theater. From all of my readings and everything that I understood about our history, looking at the Free Southern Theater and the work that Fannie Lou Hamer did in terms of getting out the vote and voter registration, the Free Southern Theater would go out into the suburbs of Mississippi and Alabama and look to get people to vote and turn them on to how important voting was. And I saw the theater in that same way, that stay as close to your community as possible, because when you move away from that, something else takes over that's not as important. And so early on, that became the issue. And people told us, I mean, we had that hit play, Deadwood Dick, and they said, move the whole theater to Manhattan. You should be down there where all the other theaters are. That never interest.
That's really how you sustained, because you kept it very close to the community
We
and
kept
you
it
wrote
close.
about those issues. I mean, how many people know about our Black cowboys? How many know about Black race car drivers? I mean, those are stories that haven't been told. So you're expanding that narrative
Right.
of the experiences of Black, and you're giving people stories that have been invisible and people have been silent about.
Exactly. And so that, along with my educational background and being a teacher, it was, well, let's not stop there. We have to bring children along in this process, and we have to bring teens along. And although we'll do these professional theater productions, that the children and the youth have to be brought along. And I think one of the most rewarding experiences that I've ever had in the 50 years of my running the theater and being involved in theater and film and all those things is to watch a small child come into our theater company at the age of 7 years old and be a part of the theater and do plays and learn about theater, and then reach the age of 12 and 13 and continue with our teen program, and then be blessed enough to watch them grow into adults and become professional actors, and and really use their craft and go out into the world. And that's to me, that's one of the most powerful things you could ever see with your own eyes, because you're watching development as it goes along. And I don't think a lot of people get to see that. And so that's something that I was always very very inspiring to me to continue.
I would like you to give your thoughts on the way forward and on your next steps and what you're doing now as we come to a close.
Okay, well, as you know, I put out a book called Producing Black Theater and Film, and at Black Spectrum, and that was one of the things that I put out. And one of the things that I talked about in the book is this idea of thinking outside of the box in terms of Black theater. And so in the early 2000s, we took on and were able to, with our elected officials, acquire an outdoor mobile stage unit that's allowed us to take theater out into the community, into parks, into festivals. I mean, we were part of the Harlem Arts Festival and Harlem Week for years, the International African Arts Festival, taking our stage out and making it available, doing programs on it and making it available to the community. There was a period, I always like to just simply say that the future is out there. It isn't necessarily inside all the time. It's out there where people are. And, you know, in the age of COVID-19, you know, we still say that the human contact and the ability to reach people and you know, the human experience of people experiencing theater is more powerful than any Zoom or anything else. It's that personal contact, you know, it's the human experience. And I just think that that's, to me, want to get back to that, as well as continuing to use the medium and all mediums possible to get that message that we are a very, very creative and powerful people, and we deserve our place, rightful place in history, in the future. And that was part of the reason that we created 2000 Black, the play, because we were concerned about not seeing a reflection of ourselves in some of these futuristic films. And that's changed somewhat now, but it's not just to see the images and the skin color, it's also to see the mindsets that are going to help to make us free as people. And I think our survival is tied to the survival of this planet. And I think anytime you're a theater artist, you are a communicator, and it is not only something you want to do, it is your duty to present truth to power. It's important to present your you know, your ideas and the things that are going to help move our communities forward, so that we can have better lives and more productive you know, experiences for our community.
What a powerful message. And as you were talking, I was thinking about how performance started, if you go back to the griots. Yes. And so our theater artists, our performance artists are the original griots, and they are bringing the community. They're doing it in the community. That's and right. Combining dance and music and making sure that they're talking about messages and providing experiences that everyone can relate to. And you're keeping the young people at the forefront. So I want you to say the name of your book again, and we're going to go off. Just where can we get the book?
All right, it's available on Amazon, and it is called Producing, Poor-Dusing, Black Theater and Film at Black Spectrum Theater. It is you know, it's a book that covers a lot of space in terms of our theater work, our film work, and you know, and our purpose, and some of the things that have happened along the way as we in our 50-year history.
So thank you so much, Carl Clay. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you, and congratulations again on 50 years.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Dr. Greene. And again, please, we invite you to come out and continue the experience. And so, as I said, when the smoke clears, we'll get you out there and check out some things. And we invite everybody else to come out and check out our website at www.blackspectrum.net.
All right, thank you. I look forward to it. And you've been listening to Writers on Writing with your host, Dr. Brenda Greene. We come to you every Sunday, and you can write us at writers@mec.cuny.edu. We've had a wonderful conversation with Carl Clay, the founder and CEO of Black Spectrum Theater. Thank you, and see you next time. This broadcast of Medgar Evers College Radio is paid for by Medgar Evers College.